Join the team.
Hey team, it's McGuire Review, and today we're going to take a look at a new one from Wizkids. We're actually going to be doing quite a few new titles from Wizkids. They got a number of new games that are really dropping over the holiday season and into next year. And this is one here. It's called Super Skill Pinball Ramp It Up. Now, there was already a Super Skill Pinball that was released in the past. You'll see here there's been a number of larger outlets that have already had their say and reviewed this. This is a fantastic solo game. However, it is set up 45 minutes, ages 12 plus, and I think you can get a little lower there on the age. It's a pretty simple game. And then 1 to 4 players. So I will say, after playing this a number of times, it definitely is a good solo title. We'll talk a little bit about what I think from a perspective of playing it around the table. I think there's some situations it's really, really good for. And I think there's others that maybe it's not. You might actually enjoy it more from a solo perspective. Okay, so you got a nice little quick start guide that was included, which is, you basically can just read this really quick and you're up and running. There's some things on the back that explain what you'll find on some of the different pinball machines. And that's one thing I think they did a really good job with this on. Little promo piece there. Here is your rule book. It's pretty straightforward. Most of this rule book, the one thing I thought when I pulled this out is like, it's smaller, so generally when they're smaller, they're a little bit heftier, but I thought it's kind of hefty for what seems to be a very simple game. Most of what you'll find in here is the explanation of each one of the pinball machines that are included. So if we look at what we've got from a component perspective, it's actually done really nice. These are dry erase mats, and you're going to get at least 4 of them for different types of pinball machines that you would have, and everybody is going to have at least 4. So you'll see they're kind of double-sided. Here on the back here is top speed, so this would be kind of the back glass piece, and this would be, if you were looking at a pinball machine, that's kind of how it would be laying on the table, right? So you got your backboard, and then you've got, what's going on down there with your actual machine part. And they do suggest that you start with this Gopher Gold is the first one that you would start with here. It is probably the simplest from the perspective of how it kind of works. One of the things I thought was really cool was the fact that they do offer a number of different pinball machines in here. So like you can see, here's your backboard here for this one. And then you've got another one here that's a little bit different artwork, but the same one. You got another one here on the back, right, that looks a little bit different. So there's a number of these different style of machines that you can play, and each one of them is absolutely different, which is nice. It adds a lot of replayability, especially from the solo perspective. Like it's a pretty small form factor, so if you wanted to travel with this or take this along, or just have a little solo game at night after work or something, you can easily do that with this title and keep it fresh, because you can obviously play one of them a number of times trying to kind of beat your high score, and then mix it up and play different ones once you've mastered that particular pinball machine. So I think that was done really, really well. I also think that the way the game is designed does replicate playing a pinball machine for the most part pretty well. So if you are a big fan of playing pinball, you're probably really going to like this game. You're going to love the theme, and you're going to like the mechanics of this game and the way that it works. So we'll go over gameplay just a little bit here, because it is very, very simple. There are 2 dice that are included. I like the color. It's kind of pink with that high blue contrast, and they sort of have that cloudy style look to them, which kind of that powdery look, which I think actually make them look a lot richer. And I'm seeing WizKids do that style in a number of their dice. We'll take a look at some of their other games coming up here where they're utilizing that style, and I think that it does make the dice look a little bit nicer, a little bit higher quality. And then you're going to have these little bits here which represent the pinball machine balls, and you'll be able to place those on your board depending on where the ball kind of is or what you went after when you hit the ball up, and it was, you know, making its way back down the machine, which is pretty cool. So setup is going to be very simple. You're essentially going to get a card. You're going to get one of these included dry erase markers. Here you're going to write your, you can put your name on your card. Over here on the card is where you're going to track all of your points over the course of the game. And that's something I'll talk about here, which some people may or may not like when they're playing with a number of people. But you're going to place all your points right here, and then you're going to be able to get an ability to nudge. So all of those things are built in that you normally would do. You can kind of nudge the machine if you want to kind of change the way that your dice are that you've rolled. If you want to like change it to a different number, you can choose whatever number you want. However, if you nudge that number a far distance one way or the other, then you have the possibility of tilting the machine, which you don't want to do, because if you tilt, you obviously then, you know, lose. So you want to be careful that you don't go overboard and you tilt and you end up losing like the balls that are in play. I say that because you can get some bonuses to activate multi-ball and have like actually two balls in play while you're taking your turn, which is a pretty fun thing as well. Yeah, tilting can be very dangerous because you want to nudge low numbers, basically, is the strategy. Like if you only nudge one of the dice up one or down one because you're trying to meet a total on one of these areas that you're trying to hit, you're probably safe from tilting. Upon the next time you roll these dice, if the difference between these two dice is less than your nudge value, then you're over for that round. You lose for that round. And the game only lasts 3 rounds. And a round is over for you. It may be over for you at a different time than it's over for somebody else. The round is over for you once any, you know, balls you have in play. You may only have 1. You only have 2 if you activate the multi-ball. But once you don't have any balls in play anymore, they've basically fallen off, you know, down into the machine because you weren't able to, you know, get the right roll or the right nudge. Then that round will be over for you. And once everybody is in that state where their ball is out of play, you then would enter the second round. And again, after the third round, the game is over. So as you're playing, you will be in kind of a different state than anyone else around the table. All right, so when you start this game, there's a little spot on the board that says start, and you'll be able to see this over the overhead view. You'll just put the ball right there on the start spot, and then your first, for this particular one, your first sort of shot of the ball shoots into this little area here. It's called Eureka. And what's nice about these is, again, every one of them is significantly different, like every pinball machine is different. And there's little areas where you essentially can just get bonus points by hitting that, you're right, and you'll just track that point when you get that. Or there's areas that once you fill them up completely, you'll unlock this ability of the machine and you'll get some kind of bonus, which is usually indicated somewhere on the board. After you fill up a certain area, you'll get a specific bonus. Like here for this one, for instance, we have the nugget, the red bonus, and then the gold bonus. And once those are fully filled up, then you will unlock one of these larger bonuses down here at the bottom of this particular board. And you can just select whichever one you want, and then you get that bonus for either however long it says, or potentially for the rest of the whole round, or just forever. There's some of these bonuses that just activate, that they're always in play. Now, what you're essentially going to do is you can define one person that will roll the dice, or a number of people can do it. It's usually faster if just one person for that game is the dice roller. You're going to start off and you're just going to roll the dice. And we got a 2 and we got a 3. Every single person around the table is going to select one of those dice, only one. And let's just say that we selected the 3. That was our die. Another person could have selected the 3. Another player could have taken the 2. You're not physically taking the die. It's kind of just a dice pool that's in the middle of the table that anybody can utilize. But you're just going to select one of them. Let's say we went with the 3. Now, we may have gone with the 3 because, we want to go ahead and mark off this section right here of our board that has a 3. You'll notice that every section of the board has a little die on it with the pips in a specific way, a certain number. And you may choose, depending on where the ball is, well, the ball starts off here in the first turn. Well, I'm going to go with that 3 because I can, if you ever see them like together like that with a solid line around them, then you'll just mark off both of them. Some of them you'll see just have individual die. Some of them are kind of stuck together in certain areas, and you only need one of those results to mark that off. You'll also notice other things. Some of these have a very solid black line drawn around them. If they do, that's something that once you fill all those in within an area, then you get to erase them all and kind of start over. And usually the areas that unlock special abilities are like that. Some of these will have double solid lines around them. Now, if it has the double solid line drawn around it, that's filled in for the rest of the game. And you'll see a number of spots here, usually with the special, like the really special abilities that unlock a lot of points on these boards. They'll be filled in for the rest of the game. So once you filled it in, you don't have to worry about it again. You're not going to ever erase it. It's always kind of there, and it's active as long as it says it's active. But then once it runs out, it's kind of done. And a lot of these will only activate for like a round usually. And again, there's 3 rounds within a game. So once you activate it and use it, it's just good for that round. So you need to think about strategically activating that near the beginning of a round. Don't activate something that's really powerful at the very end of a round and then it's over for you. Or if you feel like you're getting close to the end of that round, which would essentially be a lot of the things down here at this bottom section would already be filled in. Because again, this is where your paddles are. You got to have the right die that you fill in to be able to hit the ball with the paddle and move it up into an area that you want to go to, that you're shooting for. You need to have these lanes open, and once those things get locked down, that's when you're now going to start losing it once it moves down, because you won't have the ability to hit those paddles anymore to keep it going. All right, so just kind of have to balance when you activate those high point totals. So that's really how it's going to work. It's very simple. You just roll a die, you pick a number, and you say, well, that's where I wanted to hit, and that number is available, so I'll scratch that in, right? So you would scratch that in and cover it, and now it's covered and seen that it's taken. Where you would use that nudge is if you're in a specific situation where it's like, oh, it's a 3, but I really needed the 2. Like, that's the one that I needed, because maybe the 3 was taken, or maybe you just feel like, odds-wise, you want that. That's when you're going to nudge and you're going to mark off. And you only get 3 nudges for the course of the whole game, because that's a double line box. You would mark off that nudge and you would say, okay, it's a 3, I'm nudging it down to a 2. So that's only a difference of 1, and you just write that little 1 right there in the nudge. And then upon the next time this die was going to roll, because that's how it's going to work. The dice aren't going to roll once per round. The dice are going to roll once per like ball movement. So you do have to wait for everybody to kind of do what they're doing, and then you'll grab those dice and you'll roll them again. And I got a 5 and a 2. Well, the difference between 5 and 2 is 3. That's greater than or equal to 1. I don't tilt, I'm good. So you're really safe with that like 1 nudging. It's once you get 2, 3, 4, you're really nudging it to like broader numbers. That's when you're going to like maybe mess up and tilt. So that's something you want to balance as well as you're going through the game. And again, you only get 3 of those nudges for the whole entire game. Now, again, every one of these boards is different, but there are some things that are pretty, pretty standard. If you have a red paddle, that red paddle is only going to be able to hit into the areas that are red. Okay? If you have a yellow paddle, it's only going to be able to hit into the areas that are yellow. Now, if an area has a white arrow or is like this blue color, either paddle can hit into that area. All right, that's about as easy as it gets from what you can hit, and then basically you just pick the die and the number of the thing that you want, and then basically what it is, you then either get a point right then, or you're adding up to clear off a whole area to activate some type of special bonus. That's really the whole entire game of how this works. It is that simple. But really what I want to talk about now is what's this game going to work for and what's it probably going to work not for. I said from the beginning, from a solo perspective, I think the game is an awesome solo game, and it's a lot of fun and it has an enormous amount of replayability. I think when you're going to play with other players, it's fun it is fun, but you have to take it from the perspective of, I'm just playing my pinball game, and I'm not as worried about as what everybody else is doing. Because there's so much going on with like you looking at those dice and then saying, okay, what do I want to do? Because there could be a number of choices that you could be making. So that's enough for you to be focused on. It's pretty hard to look over at your neighbor and see, well, where is your neighbor's points, and what are they doing and what are they hitting? That's probably the only thing you're going to be looking at from a neighbor perspective, is kind of how far down this track have they scratched off with points. And if you see someone who's like midway down and you're only a quarter of a way down, well, you might want to think about taking some risks and going for some higher point value things that would be a little bit harder to get to potentially be able to catch up. That's probably the only thing you're really going to be looking at. Other than that, you're playing your own game, okay? Because when these dice are rolled, everybody's doing their own game and playing their own game. So that's one piece that some people may not like. There are a lot of gamers that they don't like to just, like if I'm going to sit around the table and just pretty much play my own game, I'll just always play this from a solo perspective. It will just be a solo title for me. There are some gamers that's what they would want to do. There are others that wouldn't bother. It wouldn't bother you to sit around the table and everybody be playing their own individual game, but you're kind of playing together. The other piece is with the scoring and the winning. When the game is over, again, it kind of is the honor system, and you have to understand and make sure that you're doing your scoring right. Because some of these boards, like this one here, has an area in the pan, the gold pan. Well, the pan area, you can choose to do A times B, A plus B, or at any point in time you can do A minus B. Not sure why you would want. There may be a reason why you'd want to do that. I never used that. I did the A times B or A plus B, and all that means is your two dice. So, for instance, if I rolled a double six here, that would probably be a very good round. If I could get the ball in that area, hit that area, to scratch off A times B, because that would be 6 times 6, and that would give a lot of points. So that's how you would kind of use your point system. But there's many times where you need to make sure that you're getting your bonus points added on with the points of what you're hitting, and you're doing that math right. You're doing it accurate. And that's not something that anyone is kind of policing around the table. I mean, you're playing your own game. You're adding up your own points. So that's the most important thing before you start to play, I think, to kind of negate that, is everybody needs to thoroughly understand the machine they're playing and how all the points work on that machine. And if for some reason you get confused, you need to raise your hand and ask. Because the other, I think, side of this is when you're all done, you add up all your points. If you're a really competitive player and you don't win, you're going to have that looming in the back of your mind of, well, did they really add up their points correctly? I know I did, but did this other player really add up their points correctly? Especially if it was a newer player. So that's the only thing that I'll say, like from a review perspective with this particular type of game. And there's lots of games like this where you're playing your own game, you're doing your own points. It's kind of the honor system. And at the end of the game, when it's over, you say, okay, I got this many points. Did I win or did I not? All right, so it's just something to understand about how this game is scored and plays out. Other than that, you can sit down with 3 other players, have a 4-player game going over, what I like to call kind of a beer and pretzels type game. You're having some drinks, you're having some snacks, you're lightly playing, you're having some fun, you're rolling the dice. It can be a ton of fun and a great evening playing a number of rounds of this pinball game. Or it can be an excellent solo title where you just got off work, you want to kind of de-stress and spend 15, 20 minutes, because you can play pretty fast if you're doing solo. 15, 20 minutes by yourself and blow through one of these and have a little fun, try to beat your highest score. Maybe you just try to max out and beat the machine before you move on to a next one. That can be a lot of fun as well. Okay, so this has been the Super Skill Pinball Ramp It Up by Wizkids. I probably said way more than was necessary for a game that was this straightforward and simple, but I do think there's some things that from a review perspective I really wanted to call out with this particular title. But it is a lot of fun, and we've enjoyed it as a family. If you see it out there, make sure to pick it up if this is a title for you. So hit that like, hit the subscribe button to join the team. Keep rolling them crits. This has been the McGuire Review. We'll see you next time.